For a conversation produced by our underwriter, the Annie E. Casey Foundation, about unlocking the power of adolescence to build a better future, please welcome Lisa M. Lawson, President and CEO of the Annie E. Casey Foundation, with Richard V. Reeves, President of the American Institute for Boys and Men.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Good. Congrats on your first book.
Thank you so much.
Huge achievement. I'm the father of 3 boys in their 20s. They're 29, 25, and 23. I think you have a...
I have a 22-year-old daughter.
So, first of all, why this book now? And second of all, when does it end? Like, what's the end of adolescence? I'm asking for a friend, of course, but
of course.
It took disturbingly long to me.
It is a decade long.
So why this book and how long?
So in simple terms, I wrote this book because I want to help us see and serve young people better. Adolescence, as you mentioned, is a long, somewhat messy period. All of us have been teenagers and experienced the milestones like graduations and learning to drive, but also the mistakes like maybe underage drinking or failing out of college the first time you try. But adolescence lasts from roughly the age of 14 to 24. It's a bridge between childhood and adulthood. And that's reflected in the visual on the front of the book. You see a young woman go from carrying a backpack to a briefcase. Mm-hmm. That's how long it lasts. And during that time, young people are learning all kinds of things like how to be critical thinkers, how to manage their emotions, how to deepen relationships. And I know those are all the things we as parents wish our teenagers knew right now. That's the aha I bet some parents are having, but they aren't quite developed yet to have all those skills fully. Okay. And so adolescence is this journey that enables young people to fully build those skills, and it's not done until their mid-20s. So this book is really designed to help us all understand how the science of adolescence, the more we know about what's happening, can help us build programs and supports that can help more young people get across this bridge safely.
So I'm nearly there, is what I'm hearing you saying.
You're almost there, Richard.
So, yeah, my kids are like here on the bridge doing that. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion of early years, and I think Governor Wes Moore in the forward here says that like the science of the early years really dominated policy debate. I can, as someone that's worked in this space, you and I share an interest in young people, in mobility. That's why we've worked together before. But really, the science of adolescence is really grown, it seems to me. And my technical summary of the science of adolescence up until this point has been it's a hot mess, right? But
in technical terms.
Right, but you have a more scientific take on it, I think. So talk about the science.
I do, and that's really what the first part of the book is about. Unfortunately, we don't ever explain to young people beyond puberty what's happening in their lives, and we certainly don't tell parents what's happening during this time. So it's a profound period of cognitive, social, and emotional development. And we know certain things about how young people develop. They like to learn by doing. They don't just want to be in classrooms. Right. They want to engage and to practice what they are learning. It can't just be abstract. It has to be practical. They like to have leadership opportunities. They want to practice decision-making abilities, which is really important. And they need relationships to help them figure out what to do when they make mistakes, because that's the context for them to figure out how to get back on track. So the more we understand about the science of adolescence, the better we can set young people up for success and prevent problems down the road.
Yeah, I love this emphasis in the book and in your work. And I should say that you've been running a program at Casey, Thrive by 25, for many years now, is the relational scaffolding, which is even more important in these years than at another point. So I think that relational element, which I think we also heard in the last session too, is hugely important. But for teens, adolescents, young adults especially, now feels like an especially important moment to have this conversation around Gen Z, et cetera. So what are the particular challenges that you see facing this group at such an important developmental age right now? I mean, this is not new, right?
It's
this is
not
as
new
long as
science.
human history. Like our brains haven't changed all that much.
No, but the world has.
So talk more about that.
The world has changed. changed dramatically. And so young people today aren't crossing the same bridge that you and I crossed, or even that young people 10 years ago crossed. More than half of young people are growing up in families that are struggling to meet their basic needs. Young people have survived a pandemic that upended their education and their opportunity to build relationships with their peers. AI, which I know we're all talking about, is changing not just the way they learn, but what work will look like in the future. And all of these simultaneous shifts are scary for young people and are leading to mental health challenges at an unprecedented level. So we've got to make sure that the bridge we construct for young people to cross today is built for today's challenges and not yesterday's challenges. And Richard, you lead the American Institute of Boys and Men. I've talked about challenges that all young people are facing, but your work focuses particularly on challenges of young men and boys. How are their challenges maybe a little different than what I've talked about generally?
Yeah, I think they are a bit different, and thank you for asking that. In some ways, I think that particularly when it comes to technology, there's a very specific lane to go down, is that I'd be interested to know if you agree with this. I think we've got young women, in some ways it is the very relational aspect of technology that can make it potentially quite damaging, as well as good news, because there is this comparison thing. There's issues around body image. There's also issues around relational bullying and so on. It just sort of feels to me that the very fact of it being relational really seems to be a bit more affecting girls and young women. But my work on boys and young men suggests almost the opposite effect, is it can almost be more isolating. That it can actually reduce those in real life kind of relationships. And so I worry a little bit that when we talk about the impact of technology in particular on, say, young people, that we don't actually look at the ways in which it might be playing out quite differently. Not to say one is worse or better than the other, but do you agree with that? Does that fit with your read of it?
I absolutely agree. And in both cases, it's about the real world relationships they have that can help them navigate either of those challenges. How do we help young women deal with the complexities of relationships? As the mom of a daughter, I've certainly navigated a lot of that.
As the father of 3 sons, so have I. But
and this issue you point out about loneliness, it's the real life relationships that young people have with parents, with coaches, with mentors that can help them overcome some of those barriers.
I completely agree. One of the things I like about your work is that we've talked about some of the problems a little bit, and you talk about those, but there's a joyfulness to your work. All right, that actually you celebrate this period as well, that it's a period of enormous window of opportunity. And I know you've got some recommendations and solutions that you love that are here too. I love some of them. Just give us the kind of short version of like, what should we do to kind of help to make this period a really kind of joyful and liberating and fun one, because we can sometimes overemphasize the negative. You don't do that, but say a bit more about that.
Young people don't need our pessimism. They need our support to view their lives as full of possibility and purpose. So I'll say that first. That's the goal.
Not hot mess.
Not hot mess. Yep. We shouldn't say that. They can hear us when we say that. And we shouldn't judge, because we've all been a hot mess too.
Totally.
But the book really says there are 5 things young people need. And we learned this from talking to them. They need their basic needs met so they can focus on thriving, not just surviving. They need opportunities to have strong relationships with adults, not just their parents, but coaches and mentors and neighbors who can give them good guidance. They need opportunities to get education and credentials that are going to help them be prepared to be independent. They need to earn money and learn how to manage their money. And finally, they need opportunities to be leaders, because they're going to need to have agency over their lives and to be contributors to the country at large. And I think of those 5 pillars as the cables that hold up that bridge that I talked about that young people are traversing. And it's important for us as adults to see ourselves as bridge builders, to understand young people can't get those experiences, have those resources by themselves. They need us to construct a really strong, stable bridge for them. And I can tell you one example of how that science comes together is through something like apprenticeships, where young people earn money, they get job experiences. They connect to new adults in their lives, and that's where science meets innovation.
Yeah, I would say especially for young men, but that's a different conversation. But I like that cable analogy because, of course, some people have a stronger cable just because of their family background. Right. But we have a collective responsibility to make sure that everybody has that kind of support through it all. And I love what you just said about the contribution as well. I think one of the most powerful sentences that anyone can hear is, "We need you."
Yes.
And so you've turned this a little bit around to just not helping these teens kind of face the challenges, but actually we need them.
We do.
And actually their energy is amazing.
It's wonderful.
Actually, isn't it? And,
It is.
You think the stakes are quite high.
I do.
Why are the stakes high?
There are 48 million adolescents on that bridge right now, and we need to make sure all of them get across safely and successfully, because when young people thrive, we all thrive. And I think we can be great bridge builders to make that happen.
Well, you're a bridge builder of the highest order, so thank you for that. And I take away hot mess, and instead I'm going to replace Teens Rock.
Teens Rock, exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Lawson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
And congrats again.